Hi, welcome to Tech Time. Today we're looking at how to do a research paper. Now, I'm not going to show you how to write a research paper, but I'm definitely going to show you how you go about formatting one. So kick back and enjoy because we're doing some digging into different styles and formatting today on Tech Time. So welcome to Tech Time. Today we are looking at how to format a research paper. And so what we're going to do is look at the two most common ways to do a research paper, and we're also going to look at just in general what kinds of things you want to include. So it's all about research papers today. And if you're doing a research paper, or even if it's just a simple one, maybe it's not like a graduate level huge undertaking, maybe it's just something for class, big essay, whatever it might be, this will help you out. So we're going to start by looking at some of the necessary elements. So right here we have the title page, which is an important thing to have, especially if you're doing an APA style paper. So the title page informs whoever is reading your paper what the title is, gives them a little bit of information about what your topic is about. That's what the abstract does. And then you also have the body, which comes next, which will include headings, subheadings if you need to include those. You don't always have to. And then all your citations of your sources. Finally, you need to have a reference page. So let's look first at what a title page should include and should look like. Now remember, we're just talking in general here. We're not really looking at a specific format just yet. So your title page should have the title of the paper, as you can see in the example that's a little below. Should have the author's name, so if you're writing the paper, it's your name. It should have the institution that you're writing it for. So if it's high school, you put your high school name. If it's a college, you put your college. And then a header at the top of the paper. The purpose of the header is to carry on that same heading throughout your paper. So every page should have that header with the page number. And this is again just a generic look at what your cover page should look like. Now, I don't recommend just starting into a cover page and then going from there. You should probably write it all first and then start putting in the other pieces like the cover page, the abstract. But definitely focus on the actual writing first. You can add these on later. All of the major typing programs, and I'll show you before we're done, allows you to add those on. Now the abstract for your paper, this is like a summary. That's the best way to put it. It just talks very briefly about what you discovered, what you plan to talk about, kind of like a highlight of your paper. And it should also include the hypothesis. You want it to be pretty short, sweet, to the point, not too much. This one you can see is about half a page. That's pretty good. You don't want to go too much more than that. And then after that, you start getting into the actual formatting of the paper. Typically, unless specified otherwise, your formatting should be 1-inch margins all around. That's top, bottom, and both sides. You should be using a 10 to 12 point font. Depending on, again, requirements, some professors will tell you use 10 point to save space. Some will say 12 point because they can't read it. If you don't have any kind of restrictions, I would always advise to go with the 12 point font because it's a nice regular size that most of us are comfortable reading. 10 can be a little small sometimes, and you might strain, especially if you're reading a lot of just writing. On the other hand, if you're trying to save space, you don't want your paper to look like it's too long, then using 10-point font would be a way to condense that a little bit. So again, here's just a brief example of what a formatted research paper should look like. So as you can see on the first page, you have your running header at the top with the page number. You have your title, who wrote it, what they wrote it for. Now on the title page, if your teacher or instructor has other requirements, like you have to put the date, period, things like that, then add that as well. But for the most part, those are the only 3 things that you need on the cover page. Okay, there's our abstract. And then everything else follows after that. So we'll stop right here on this page. So here I have just a quick looking example of a research paper. This one has sections, so the section is separated in the middle with an underline to show that this is the introduction to the paper. It's stated as such. Then you put in your introduction. Then your next section will have another title, and so on throughout the entire paper, if you choose to do it this way. When formatting, there are 2 main types of, or I should say styles of formatting. You can most of the time choose which one you want to use, although again there are situations where you're told to use a particular style, and so you have to stick to that style. But you should always pick a style, even if they don't tell you to. Stick with that style and use it throughout the paper, because it makes your paper look a whole lot more organized, professional, and it's just good practice. Now there's many more than just the 2 I'm going to show you, but these 2 are the main 2 styles used for academics. And the first is the MLA style. So MLA is you see it more in the undergraduate area of college or high school formatting, unless the instructor requires you to use APA. Most people choose MLA if they're not forced to use any style in particular. And it's a very simple style to learn how to use. So the style guides, and you can find these by going online and just typing in MLA style guide. This particular one is found at style.mla.org. And then you just click on formatting papers, and then it takes you right to here. It'll walk you through all of the specifics, like when you should use a period, when you should not, what the reference page should look like. Should it be double spaced, single spaced? All that's included. The main thing that you'll notice about style guides is there are specific ways they want quotes to be cited on the page, and how that reference page should look. So when you're doing MLA, the reference page is called Works Cited. And you can see that on my screen here. Formatting is going to be the same for both, where again it's 1-inch margins all around. When you indent, it's a half space indent, so you can see it's a nice little chunk there to show that you've indented. Hitting tab will typically give you the right amount. The style guide will also tell you what to do with tables, illustrations. how they should be placed, labeled, so all of this is included in the Style Center. Now, for APA, I highly recommend going to this site. It's called the OWL. It's put out by Purdue's Writing Lab, and most professors and stuff will push you in this direction because it's a very well done site, easy to understand, very clear, covers everything that you need to know about APA. Tells you how to put quotes into your paper, what it should look like, how to add books, movies, sound, interviews, all of that to your reference list, because there's a particular way they should be laid out. Here's a sample of what APA paper would look like. So here's your title page. Again, here's your abstract. We mentioned that earlier. And then some examples on how to cite using APA style. Now the MLA Style Center, I do want to show this to you really quick. They do have a download where you can download a PDF of this page. So if you come to this, you can hit the download PDF, and then you'll have a hard copy of how to do this available to you. Now here's an example of what a paper would look like. So here's our research question that they're presenting. A review of the literature usually comes first. That's the first section. After they review the literature, then they analyze what the content, so this is where their thoughts and ideas come in. Now if it's something that they have to do, like put into practice, then they would explain what that was, talk about how they did that. Remember, this is for a research assignment. And then finish off with a conclusion. But the main thing I want to show you from this is the references. So always, always, always make sure you include references when you're doing a research paper. Now, whether you choose to do MLA or APA will alter what this page looks like. This one is done in APA style. The reason I can tell is because it presents the last name of the person who wrote the work, the first initial of their first name, the year, then the title. That's very typical of APA. MLA has it set up just a little bit different than this, but you can always, once you get used to seeing it, look at it and know what you're looking at. So let's look at our blank workspace. I opened this up in Microsoft Word just so that we can have something kind of generic to look at. So Microsoft Word already does the margins and stuff for you, but you can always check it out by going to Layout, and then you can go through all of these to verify that everything is the way you want it to be. So margins, you can see 1 inch top, left, bottom, right. Don't want to change that. Orientation should be portrait. Size should be 8.5 by 11. So those are the main things that you want to make sure are in place, because that's part of the formatting. On the Home tab, you have all of the formatting tools. So default typically on Microsoft Word is 11, so I'm going to change that to 12. Now, type of font, some professors, instructors, teachers are very specific on what they want it to be. I can tell you from experience that you can never go wrong if you just use Times New Roman. Seems to be the most widely accepted font. So Times New Roman, 12-point font, I'm all set. Next I want to make sure that I'm double spacing. So right here I do have my paragraph line spacing. I'm going to set it to double. That way as I type and go, it will automatically put that skip in between. Again, unless specified otherwise by your professor or instructor, you should double space because it just makes things easier to read. Then I'm going to tab to get going. So I'm just typing something generic here. Alright, I'm going to keep typing so you can see when it wraps over. Okay, so as you can see, it does put a double space in there for me. Everything's looking nice and neat. So if I were to keep typing this paper, everything would be going well. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to add that cover page. So to get a cover page, I'm going to go to Insert. Now from the Insert, I have the option right here for Insert Cover Page. When I click on that, it gives me some possible examples. For your typical standard paper, you don't need anything fancy. You don't need one of these, oh, look at me kind of things. We're just going to go ahead and pick a simple looking one. So I'm just going to click on this one. Any of these cover pages you can completely redo as well if you don't like the way it looks. Or if it doesn't quite follow the formatting that your professor, teacher, or instructor has set out. So maybe they don't want any fancy words or formatting on it. They just want it plain and simple. Then you can just delete and put your own thing in. But the key thing is that you need that page to come first. So I'm just going to leave this as is for right now. But if they don't care, and you don't care, then you can just go in and just fill these in with your information. So there's my cover page, my body. Now you might be thinking, wait, aren't you supposed to have an abstract? Yeah, you're right. So abstract is not something you really want to type up first. You should make sure your paper is in place, that you know exactly what you're saying. That'll make it a lot easier to summarize that into an abstract and be very quick and concise with what you're trying to say. And so, let's say I finished typing up everything I needed to type up. The next thing you're going to want to do then is to create a blank page for the abstract. So I'm just going to do a Control Enter on my keyboard, or you can always do page break, because that will bring it down and open up this page. Control Enter for me is easier, so I'm just going to do that. Notice that it brings my work down a page, and there's my cover page, and here's my blank page where I can now put in my abstract. Now, one of the things that is required is having a header with the page number and that running head. So to add that on my paper, all I'm going to do again is go to Insert, which we're already on, and I'm going to insert header. And then I'm going to choose one, this very simple one. Now I know it's on the wrong side, but I can always tab and get to the right side and then start typing in the information here. So I'm going to put whoops. So I got how to format a paper. I need add my page number. It's one of the options I have here, so I'm just going to click here, top of page, style number 3. And if it does make your original one disappear, you can always add it. Like so. So it's not on my cover page. It is on my abstract page because that's part of my paper. It is here, and it'll be on every page from here on out. When I'm done editing, I just double click back into the paper, and now I can continue typing or editing whatever I need to down here. For my final page, again, if I'm doing MLA style, like I showed you earlier, it's going to be called Works Cited. Right here. If I'm doing APA style, let's take a look. I'm going to pull up a APA sample paper. Here's my sample paper. Let's see, where's the page? I'm going to open this as a PDF so that I can show it full screen. Alright, I'm going to go down to the last page. Whoop. There we go. So APA, it's called References. So depending on which style you're doing, you're going to do either Works Cited or References. That should be centered. So I'm going to hit center and I'm going to put Works, actually, I'm going to put Reference. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start showing you all of this here. So you have, again, the author, you have the title, and then all the other information that follows. Again, it just depends on what type of source you're using. And I should say references. So I'm going to go back to the far left side, and then, like I said, it would be your author's name first if the work that you're referencing has an author. So I'm just going to put mine here, pretend I am referencing myself. Let's say I wrote something last year. And then continue with the rest of the reference information. One thing I should point out is notice that when you're doing the citations here, you do have the first line flush left, and then every line that follows after is tabbed in. It's to help separate each reference from the one that comes below, but it can be a little bit tricky sometimes to get that to work the way it's supposed to. Sometimes you have to fight with it. I try to just hit enter and tab underneath it and then let it go from there. Other times you can fight with the ruler and set it so that it just stays there. It wraps that way. That's what you really want it to do. But if you don't have a reference that's very long, maybe it's just one line, you don't have to worry too much about it. It's just if you have a long reference that's going to wrap to the next line that you want to make sure that line indents. And so there you go. This is the formatting for a research paper. So just to summarize, when you're doing a research paper, you want to first figure out if what you're doing is supposed to be in MLA style or APA style. Once you know which style, you can find resources online, such as this MLA Style Center, which will walk you through what MLA formatting should look like. If you're doing APA style, again, I recommend the OWL, Purdue's Online Writing Lab, where it'll walk you through every aspect of APA. Any question you might have will be covered here. Once you pick a style, stick with it all the way through, and just make sure that your paper follows that formatting in its entirety. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. There is more, of course, when it comes to creating a research paper, such as adding in your quotes and such. Style Guide will tell you exactly how to do that. Now, the publishing part of it, the typing, of course you can use whatever you have available to you. You'll have all the same ability, whether it's Microsoft Word, Google Docs, LibreOffice, Apache OpenOffice. Use whatever is at your disposal, and the formatting will work the same way. Just find where the margins are, page setup, make sure everything is laid out the way it's supposed to. Look for where the paragraph settings are so that you can figure out your line and paragraph spacing. And above all, just pay attention to whatever your teacher, professor, or instructor has already laid out as what they want, because that's what you really want to follow. All right. Thank you again for joining us on today's Tech Time Online. We'll see you next time.